Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Renee Bauer, author of Divorce in Connecticut. Renee, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I sure am.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Yeah, so this is a great question. My advice would be to get used to rejection and learn not to take it so personal. As you're querying agents, you start to become really comfortable with the email that comes through that says, this book isn't quite right for me. And sometimes those emails are a little personal. They have something very specific about your writing. And I think you take the information, you read it, and you kind of tuck it away. Maybe it's useful, but maybe it's not. Your writing and your book isn't for everyone, so you have to just remember that you're not the writer for everyone, and to not take that criticism or rejection so personally and just keep moving on and keep writing.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think this is a trick question because I feel like every phase has a mountain to climb. So first, just finishing the damn thing is like the Mount Everest of climbs, and just putting in the time when you know you don't have an agent or a publishing deal, and you're putting in all of this time not really knowing what's going to happen with it. That's, I think, the biggest challenge. And then just when you get to the top, you have another mountain to climb, and that's finding an agent. And then once you that happens, then you have another one, and that's actually getting a publishing deal. So I think you're always climbing another mountain. You have another goal once you reach the next one. So there's so many tricky things about publishing.
And then with your book, it was traditionally published, is that correct?
So yep, it was published with a small press.
Got it. And what was the process with that? Because you brought up a great point about dealing with rejection. Because, I mean, it's tough. But one of the biggest things is when you are submitting your book out to multiple people, I mean, it's going to happen. It's just, at the end of the day, it really comes down to a numbers game. So tell us a little bit about that process and how you're able to handle it to be able to land that traditional publishing deal.
Yeah, so, I've had the experience from self-publishing to small press publishing to now in that traditional path. So the Divorce in Connecticut book actually fell in my lap, and the publisher approached me, and they were doing a whole series of divorce in certain states. And they approached me to say, hey, do you want to be the author who writes this book in Connecticut? But I've also gone down the path as a fiction writer of having to find an agent and query, which it took, I think, close to 115 rejections before I found my agent, and now I have a mystery book that's out on submission. So I've really gone about it both ways, and so it's kind of interesting because I can really see the different paths. And for me, the small press was great, and it got me writing, and it got me published, and it was really specific to my state. But for the next phase, I wanted something a little bit broader and a little bit of a bigger publishing company, hopefully.
And just to ask about that process, so you actually had a publisher reach out to you and mention, hey, I've got this book that we want someone to write. How were they able to find your information? How was that connection made?
So they found me because I have always been a writer, and I've written a lot of different articles that were in different trade publications and different legal publications. And I had also written another book called The Ultimate Guide to Solo and Small Firm Success, which was another opportunity where a very, very small publisher from Connecticut had approached me, and they were the ones who were publishing all my articles. And the editor said, hey, I have this idea for a book, and do you want to write it? So it was just through the internet, and they found me, and said, "Oh, you've written a book before. You're a writer. Is this an opportunity that you're interested in?"
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Yeah, so the Divorce in Connecticut book, again, was so specific to my state. And that book was written not because I knew it was going to make any sort of bestseller list, but really as a marketing tool for my law firm. And at its launch, I donated a copy to every library in the state, which to this day has still paid back, because I have clients who will come in, or someone who's found me because they've checked out the book. So it's in the court libraries, and it's in the local libraries, and it worked. And then we did traditional press releases, and I had articles in multiple newspapers announcing the book as well.
So in regards to getting your book to different regular libraries, law libraries, what was your process with that, and how were you able to get that done? Because I know obviously Connecticut, not exactly the size of Texas where I'm at, but it's still a substantial size state. So it's very impressive how you got that book into all those different libraries.
I had a person who I worked with to do some public relations. In Connecticut, only has like 200 and something libraries. So you're right, it's a smaller state, so it was a little bit more of a manageable project than a larger state. And so we just donated a copy. The publisher gave me those copies, and we donated one to each library as a launch marketing promo.
So what was your strategy? Did you go reach out to the librarians via email, phone call, in person? Because the fact is, no matter what size state it is, the fact that you've got that in over 200 libraries is incredible, and I'm very impressed by that.
So I was really quite simple. I put together a letter and introduced myself and said, I'm a Connecticut author. I'm also a divorce lawyer, and I want to donate a book to your library. And I never got one returned, and actually can go onto the online catalogs, and they're all there. So it was quite simple. It wasn't like anyone had to approve it. We just sent them out. We just put a lot of stamps on packages, and I signed a lot of letters, and that was it.
Perfect. Well, that is a brilliant strategy, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Oh, yeah. So one of my favorite books ever, and I feel like this is a hard question to ask any writer because there's so many favorites, but the one that really, the one with the worn binding and really sits on my shelf as like an inspiration for how to be a storyteller is The Pillars of the Earth from Ken Follett. And what was so brilliant about this book is it's a really thick book, and he just wrote it so brilliantly over so many different generations, and you just got lost in it. And for me, that's what a book is supposed to be. That's what the storytelling is supposed to be, that it just brings you in. And I felt like I was back in that time period and was so connected to the characters in that book. And that still stands to be one of my favorite ones of all time.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Yeah, so I have a magnet on my fridge by Eleanor Roosevelt that says, do one thing every day that scares you, and that's something that I live by. It's something that I teach my son when he was struggling with baseball, was afraid of being hit. I gave him this sign and put it on his wall because I think you're constantly challenging yourself, and even if something is really scary and really uncomfortable, and you're pushing yourself and challenging yourself to see what you're capable of, and it's something that I live by.
Excellent. Well, Renee, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
So I love social media. I'm on Instagram, and my handle is at Ms. Renee Bauer. And from that account, you can get linked up to everything else that I have going on out there.
Renee, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you so much. It was such a fun chat.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works,
Grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.